Welcome, everyone, and good evening. I'm Lee Thielen, and I'm with the League of Women Voters of Larimer County. And welcome to the candidate forum for the 2024 election of the Wellington Board of Trustees. We're doing this forum by Zoom, and we hope that many of you are able to join us. You may find it helpful to set your computer on speaker view for ease of listening, but that's up to you. Before getting started, I'd like to thank the Voter Services team of the League for organizing this and other forums that we do. And a special thank you goes to Kathy Wilson for handling technology tonight. What would we do without people like you? This forum will be available on the League's website, in our video collection, and on vote411.org. If anyone would like to see it after tonight. We will also be sending the link to the forum video to everyone who's registered tonight. So you'll get it if you want to share it with any of your neighbors or friends or family. Just a reminder that the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization. We encourage informed and active participation in government and influence policy through education and advocacy after much study of issues. Excuse me. We do not endorse political candidates or parties. Also, it's of interest that the League of Women Voters in Larimer County is the largest chapter in Colorado. Isn't that a fine thing? Now, the Wellington Board of Trustees, and perhaps all of you know this because you're from Wellington, consists of 6 members and a mayor. They are the legislative body of the town and have authority to adopt laws, ordinances, and resolutions, as well as approving budgets, I'm sure. There are currently 3 vacancies with 5 candidates running for these positions. The term is for 4 years. The ballots must be received by April 2nd, 2024 at 7 p.m. So you may vote by mail ballot. Now, there are 5 candidates, but there are 4 that are with us tonight. And perhaps you'd like to just wave as I call your name. Ed Cannon, Rebecca Daly, John Gator, and Mario Quinones. I think Mario's here, but he's stopped his video. The candidates will be giving 90 seconds to write us their opening remarks, and that's what we'll do first. We have a number of questions that have come from League volunteers and community members. And you will see us rotating the order in which they answer those questions. Then there will also be closing remarks. We will be watching time carefully, and Jory Kramer is our timekeeper. So with that, are you ready for your opening remarks? We'll start with Ed Cannon.
Well, thank you, Lee. I appreciate appreciate the introduction, and thank you again to the League of Women Voters for setting up this forum. My name is Ed Cannon, and I am running for Wellington trustee. Most of you know that I served as the Wellington Town Administrator from 2017 until 2020, so I'm very familiar with the issues facing Wellington, not only the issues, but also am aware of the solutions to those issues as well. My background includes 20 years with the United States Air Force and 10 years in the private sector. I have served as a town manager in 2 states and 3 municipalities. I'm very familiar with Colorado laws. I know how government works. And quite frankly, I know how government can find solutions to complex problems. I'm running because I feel like that I have this experience that I'd like to share with Wellington and to provide visionary leadership for the town as we continue to grow so that we make sure that we have a sustainable future going forward. So again, thank you, and I appreciate you joining the Zoom meeting today.
Thank you, Ed. Now we have Rebecca Daly.
Hi, and thank you again for hosting this. I really, really appreciate it. My name is Rebecca Daly. I'm one of the incumbents. I am currently a trustee for the town of Wellington. Prior to that, I was a planning commissioner, and I'm going to bring that up a couple times tonight. I'm sure that will come up in questions. Wellington is at this amazing pivotal moment right now where we have the opportunity to really get back on track. And a lot of that has to do with planning and development. So I bring a lot of history and experience from that. But above all and everything, I lead with compassion and care. I'm what's really important to me is relationships, making sure that we're representing everybody of Wellington. So whether that be the people who are loud and proud at meetings or the people who are really busy with young kids at home. Wellington is primarily, the largest population is young families in our town. So those are people who are very busy, may not be able to show up all the time, but their needs matter just as much. So I take an approach where I use data, information, a whole picture, sound reasoning to make sure I make the best decisions and engage with as many people as possible to make those decisions. So I'm very excited for the future. It is time to look forward. So I am really, really looking forward to the next 4 years, and I am asking for your trust and vote today. So I'm looking forward to answering these questions. Thanks again for hosting this forum.
Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. Wonderful. John Gator's next.
All right. Well, thank you again for the opportunity to come here today, and thank you for hosting it. One of the biggest things that I have really sought is for more engagement with the people of the community to understand what is happening in government. So my name is John Gator. I currently serve on the Board of Trustees as well. Started my term in 2020. I grew up in Fort Collins, about 10 miles south of Wellington. And then when I moved back here to Colorado, I realized I loved the small town feel. I loved having the farmland and not just being in the big city. So moved my family back to Wellington when I moved back to Colorado. One of the big reasons that I got involved with government in Wellington was I was not happy about just some of the communication that was happening. There was a lack of communication. It was hard to understand what was happening, where things were going, and really felt that there was a lack of representing the concerns of the residents in what was happening in government. And so that's the reason I initially ran in 2020. And while we've had some opportunity to improve on that, I still feel that there's a long ways to go. There's a lot of great professionals. We've got a lot of great people that work there. I think one of the things that we lack a lot in government is really taking time to say, what is the impact this is going to have on the people? What do the people want to see done? And when you look at our government, whether it's from the federal level down to the local level, we were designed to be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And so really my goal is to be that representative who's there to represent you, the residents of Wellington. And I look forward to the opportunity to share more tonight.
Thank you, John. Next, we have Mario Quinones. Mario, are you with us?
I think he's having trouble with his audio.
Oh,
So I saw on the screen he was trying to connect to the audio. There he is.
any luck, Mario?
Hello. Or, yeah, yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
No, we can.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
yes.
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I do apologize. I keep getting kicked off here and I have full bars. I'm not sure what's going on. My name is Mario Quinones. I was born and raised here in Colorado. I've been a small business owner for the past 15 years. Through being in business, I've intentionally worked on communication skills, leadership skills, and decision making. Those are some of the things that I feel I'll bring to the table as a newly elected trustee. About 3 years ago, I got started in some grassroots campaigning. It was just the funnest time I've had pretty much in my life when it comes to being of service to others. I was able to campaign for our own mayor, Mayor Shossi, a couple of our trustees, Trustee Teets and Trustee Mason, and some other officials like John Fain, our sheriff. I'm running for this position so I can be involved in important decisions that are going to face our future. And I want every resident to have a voice. So I want to work on the board coming together in unity as one ability.
15.
Mario, are you finished? Well, thank you, Mario.
I am. I'm not sure if
You
were
really
able to
should
hear
have
me.
15 seconds left, I think, if you wanted to use it.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, please vote for me. I'm for the residents and businesses of Wellington first, and I look forward to serving everyone in the community.
Thank you. Now we're going to get into the questions, and like I've told the candidates, we have a whole lot of questions. So we're going to start in alphabetical order again. So Ed will lead us off with the answer to these questions. I'm going to put these two questions one after the other. So why are you running for trustee, and what qualifications or experience do you have that prepares you to serve?
Well, I am running for trustee because I have for a long time felt that Wellington has not been very visionary. We have not planned sufficiently for our future. We've dwelt too much on the past. I think past decisions by past boards dating back 40 or more years have led us into an untenable situation, which is causing problems for our residents, especially with our water rates. I have my qualifications, as I mentioned in my introduction. I have been a city manager for 13 years in 2 different states. I have a master's degree in public administration. I know how government works, and I know how to get things done. I was very successful throughout all my career in the Air Force, the private sector, and in the
15.
and in the public sector. And I want to continue to do that work here in Wellington.
Thank you. Rebecca, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Why are you running for trustee, and what qualification or experiences do you have that prepares you to serve?
Thank you. I am running for trustee because I love Wellington. I love it so much. And I think that a lot of residents are missing out on the same experience that I have. So the reason why I love it so much is it's so friendly. It's exactly like the kind of place where you want to raise your kids and you want to let your kids run loose. But a lot of our residents don't have that experience because they're, driving away from Wellington every day. But what I hope to do is inspire that pride and community that I have. And then that's when residents start spending their money, here, and loving where they live and becoming that neighborhood small business or small town feel that you need. And of course, that has to do a lot with being able to sustain
15.
a small business. I've had multiple roles, including early childhood PSD chair. I work on the Policy Council for Solid Waste for the county. I have many leadership roles, and again, as I said, planning
Thank
committee.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Mhm.
John, would you like me to repeat the question?
I think I got it, but thank you, Lee.
You bet.
So I would say that the biggest reason that I'm running for office again is that, as is mentioned, yes, there were mistakes that were made in the past. There's a saying that's been for a long time, those who do not learn from the past are doomed to repeat it. And I think that there's been some areas we've done good in learning from the past. There's been other areas that we haven't, and our finances is one of the biggest of those, that the town has still continued to struggle to move beyond the mistakes of the past. I think one of the things that's important, I have a financial background. And I've actually brought that to the town and really asked some critical questions about what are we doing with the taxpayer dollars. The other thing, and the biggest qualification I think that I have, is I'm a resident here, and I actually take the time to talk to my neighbors, talk to the other people that live here, and ask what are the things that are affecting them and the concerns that they have. Because our role as the trustee is, it's not about my
15.
education, it's about how can I do a good job of representing the needs and concerns of the residents of the town of Wellington.
Thank you, John. Mario. Mario? Are you with us, Mario?
Yes. Could you repeat the question?
I'll repeat the question, sure. Why are you running for trustee, and
I
what
am with you. Could you please repeat the question?
why are you running for trustee, and what
I
qualifications
am with you. Could you please repeat the question?
I'm going to try again, Mario. Why are you running for trustee, and what qualifications or experiences do you have that prepares you to serve?
Thank you for the question. I am running for trustee. It's for my children and for the residents of Wellington. I feel like it's the next step in in being involved with local government, that I have to step up and at least give myself an opportunity to be involved in the decision making of this town that I will reside in and more than likely retire in. I as I said, I had campaigned for two of our current trustees and the mayor. I've worked with a lot of people on the board through volunteer opportunities. And I'm really excited to be a part of making decisions that are going to shape our future in Wellington.
Thank you, Mario. Appreciate it. Okay, now we're going to start with the second question, and we'll start that one with Rebecca in this rotation that we have. What do you think are the biggest challenges facing Wellington, and how will you address those?
There's a few. So the biggest one I would say is a lack of vision. We have been stuck in the town of Wellington, and we have been cleaning up, resolving major considerations and issues specifically relating to expansion of our water plants. We have been just really stuck. So what's been lacking is focusing on the future. Now that those plants are going online later on this fall, we have this wonderful opportunity in front of us to make up for lost time and start planning for what we should be doing. I worked on the steering committee, 2-year process to build out a community vision through the comprehensive plan. It was a very long process, and that's actually was my biggest accomplishment.
15 seconds.
From my previous term. So that built a view of the future, huge community engagement to make sure we know where we're headed, and we need to embrace that and focus on that going forward.
Thank you. Next, we're going to go to John. And John, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, if you could, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure. What do you think are the biggest challenges facing Wellington, and how will you address those?
So I think growth is one of the biggest challenges that's facing Wellington. The most immediate challenge that is facing the town right now is our finances, as I kind of alluded to earlier. We're currently, again, this is projections, and projections can change over time, but we're projected to actually go negative in both our water enterprise and our sewer enterprise fund within the next 2 years. And a lot of that is looking at what are we doing to get out of that, both to raise revenues, but also what are we doing with expenditures? Are we continuing to rise and increase expenditures, or are we actually working to cut that down? And then growth. One of the big things that we see is we talk a lot about the services and things that we want, and a lot of times we're trying to have the amenities of places like Fort Collins and Lovelands with far less of a budget than those towns have. And I think this comes back to who is Wellington and what are we trying to become. And I think we have to find that balance between what we are as a small town, our agricultural roots, and trying to be like a Fort Collins or like a Loveland when we just don't have the resources to support that.
Thank you, John. Now we'll go to Mario. Mario, would you like me to repeat the question? Mario? I don't think Mario can hear us. Would you like me to?
Yes, please.
Okay, good.
Yes, please.
What do you think are the biggest challenges facing Wellington, and how will you address those?
Yeah, so I think Trustee Gator and Trustee Daly hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of issues that are facing Wellington. I think for me, the biggest thing that I see is the lack of collaboration and communication between our board members. We have all the answers. We know what we need to do, but there's a lot of time wasted not communicating and not collaborating as a
15.
board to properly represent the people of Wellington. Once I get in there with my leadership skills and communication skills and and the collaboration that I've built many businesses on will be a united board.
Thank you,
And we'll
Mario.
have a better opportunity to look at all these
Thank
issues that face Wellington and
you,
work
Mario.
together as a team, as a unit.
Thank you, Mario. Now we're going to go to Ed. Ed, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I believe I've got that. Thank you so much.
Okay, you bet.
The first and most immediate challenge we have is what our residents are paying for the utility water rates, water and sewer rates. And all those rates and those cost increases are related to a previous bad decision by the board back in 1983 for this North Poudre contract, because we have to buy our water. We are one of the only communities that doesn't own its water. So we have to buy our water. And that water rate has a formula in there that takes into account some variables that, quite frankly, have nothing to do with North Poudre's ability to deliver water. We need to renegotiate that contract to get rates under control so that people have more money in their pocket at the end of the month. Secondly, the biggest challenge we've had unprecedented growth for a number of years. We're known as the bedroom
15.
Fort Collins. We have lacked on commercial growth to support our residents, and we need to pay more attention and focus on creating more commercial growth within Wellington.
Thank you. Great. Now we're going to go to question number 3, and we'll start with John. According to the 2023 community survey, improving the local economy is a priority for the Wellington residents. What actions would you suggest to accomplish that?
Thank you. I would say one of the biggest things that we need to be asking the question when it comes to stimulating the local economy is, why are businesses not coming here? I know, as been mentioned just now, we lack in commercial growth. We've had residential growth. Why aren't businesses coming here? The second question that needs to be asked is, why are businesses leaving here? We've had several businesses that have been in the town of Wellington that have left. This is one of the things that I've asked for several times. I think we're finally starting to get to that, but asking, what are the things that are causing these businesses to leave? In some cases, it may be things like the rent is high. Other places, it could be that there's a lot in the process in terms of red tape that the government puts forth. So I think a lot of it comes down to, what are we doing as a government to try and create an environment that businesses want to be a part of, that they want to move into? And a lot of that just comes down to, what are the roadblocks that we as a government are putting in place? We can't control landlords, we can't control other people, but we can control what we are doing as a government body that may actually make it so businesses don't want to move here.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll go to Mario. Mario, would you like me to repeat the question? Did we lose Mario?
I think there's a bit of a delay for Mario, so
Right.
I think he's hearing what we're saying a little bit after we say it.
Just be patient a little bit, okay?
Right.
That's good advice.
Sound is on. He has everything on. So
Mario?
I'm wondering if Mario should get off and then come back into the meeting and see if that would help his transmission at all.
Uh-huh.
Yes, please. I'm having a very unstable. Oh, I'm here. Can you?
I would like to repeat the question, Mario. According to the 2023 community survey, improving the local economy is a priority for the Wellington residents. What actions would you suggest to do that?
He just got off, and I think he's going to come back in.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully when he comes back in, it'll be a better connection.
I wonder if we should just move on to the next person and then pick him up.
I think that's a great idea.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah, Ed, I think you're next then. The question, oh, you always remember the questions. Do you want me to repeat it?
No, I don't need to repeat that.
Okay.
First of all, I agree with some of the comments that's been said by John Gator. Wellington needs to create a better business environment. There's a perception that government red tape causes unnecessary delays for new businesses that want to start up. And we need to do a better job of getting these new businesses up and running as soon as possible. Also, we need to make sure that our economic growth reflects the character and the values of our community. No one wants to turn into a Fort Collins here, but if we are smart about how we do our growth, smart about which companies we recruit, then we will make sure that we don't become a Fort Collins, that we will become a Wellington that is self-sustaining and sustainable.
15.
Okay. I think he's done. Rebecca, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I'm great. Thank you. I'm very familiar with that survey, those surveys and statistically valid feedback from our residents. It really resonates with me. I use it in every decision I make. So regarding this topic in particular, we need to aggressively change our technique when it comes to economic development. And that's not just relating to soliciting and getting new businesses. That's also relating to supporting our existing businesses and nurturing entrepreneurs through incubators or accelerators, and using what we can control from the town of Wellington to make sure that we're supporting everyone and they have everything that they need, whether it's support through working through regulation, if it's support through finding a storefront or
15.
whatever it may be. We do have the power within the town of Wellington to make sure that we're proving the market of the businesses that we have, and then finding the businesses that we need and potentially having incentives for them. But those are the things that we can't control.
Thank you. Is Mario available?
Mario is just coming in now.
Okay, let's wait a minute and see if he can connect.
Okay. Let's see.
Mario, he's connecting to audio.
Not- Okay.
Maybe he could just use the phone number and call in. Might be better for him.
Yes.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. So he's not in yet. As far as I can see.
Can see him.
Oh, yep. Okay, I'm gonna ask. No.
Mario, can you hear us?
Okay, I believe I'm here.
Okay.
Sure.
The
I
question,
can.
the
Can you hear me
question-
now?
Yes. The question was, according to the 2023 community survey, improving the local economy is a priority for the residents. What actions would you suggest to accomplish that?
I I think we, I'm not sure how our role as trustees are able to influence or
Okay.
bring in businesses. That's something I need a little more clarification.
Okay.
I know that at one point it was said by the town administration that trustees were not to be
Mario, we're wondering if you would be better off calling in. If you go to the invite, there's a way to call in. I think this is painful for him and for everyone else to try to figure this out. Let's move on to the fourth question. And with this one, who gets to start next? Fourth question, starts with Mario. Oh, no, we can't do that. Let's start with Ed. The fourth question is, what are your thoughts on the opening of the first marijuana dispensary in town and what effect it might have on the local economy?
That's an interesting question. Personally, I feel that the medical or the marijuana dispensary in Wellington is a good thing. Quite frankly, I'm the type of person that says, okay, it's legal in Colorado, it's legal in Wellington. I know it's a controversial subject, so let's take advantage of it. Let's be smart and responsible about where they're located, how they're operated, and so forth. And I would say that we need to just, excuse my language, tax the stew out of it, so to make sure that we bring in the revenues for this business. Those revenues can go a long way toward providing for better parks and better trails for our community. And I, first of all, I went to their grand opening the other day, and I welcome them to the community.
Good. Thank you for that. Rebecca.
Yes, Smoking Cowboy, that's our new dispensary. I was also at the ribbon cutting. I got to speak on behalf of the town of Wellington and welcome them into Wellington. Any business that's going to fight as hard as they did to be part of our community and make such enormous investments in order to operate their business here, I welcome them with open arms. And not only that, voters also asked to tax it additionally and have that additional tax go towards recreation for the town of Wellington. And again, you might hear later, but recreation and quality of life is really, really important to me. So this is just another avenue that we're going to be funding, you know, these really important programs that we can be doing in our town. But going back to Smoking Cowboy, I appreciate what they've done for our town. I don't know if anybody's familiar, but that building was not pleasant to look at before. They've made it beautiful. Sergeant Cherry, actually, I spoke with him and he let us know that they're going above and beyond any security measures and taking any recommendation regarding state statute and implementing those. So they're great partners.
Thank you. The next we have John.
All right, thank you. So personally, I don't think marijuana is a great thing for our town, but I think the important thing that was big to me, right, is what we do and don't do is not based on what I personally want. What we did is we sent this item to the voters, and the voters voted, and they did. They approved by one vote. They said, we do want to have marijuana in our town. I appreciate that they are working to follow the requirements of that. I do have concerns of the impact it's going to have just on our town as a whole. With the economy, I know people have said it's going to really help. It's going to fund all these things. I just look at Berthoud, who has double the marijuana tax that we have on that, and the amount of money that they bring in with multiple shops that have been there for 3 years. I don't think it will bring in quite as much as people have been saying it is, but that's something that's going to be proved out one way or the other over time.
15.
Okay, good. Now, do we have Mario on?
I believe so. Can you hear me?
That's
much
beautiful.
better. I'm gonna
Wonderful.
rename you, Mario. This is Kathy. I'm gonna rename you so we have your name going up there instead of Samsung. So
Okay, and it
I'll
didn't
get
give me
that
that option on when I
no,
logged
I know
in on
I
the
can do it.
phone.
I should be
Okay.
able to do it.
Okay.
Thank you very.
So did you get the question? What are your thoughts on the opening of the first marijuana dispensary in town? What effect it might have on the local economy?
Yeah, you know, I'm hopeful that the revenue that it brings in will be able to help our town. I had campaigned against it. It was something that I did not want to see in Wellington. But I think Trustee Gator said it best. The voters spoke, and as elected officials, it's not always about what we want or what we think is best for the town. So, you know, I'm excited. The one thing I will mention is, you know, driving by it, my kids said, "Hey, why does that building have bars on it?" You know, that was just one thing that was interesting to me. It's like, you know, the kids are seeing this, and hopefully, and according to Sergeant Cherry, which is great,
15
it hasn't had any increase in crime. A little bit of traffic has increased, but you know, I'm hopeful for it. I wish them the best. Hopefully, they even have enough business to be sustainable.
Thank you. Okay, now let's go to question number 5, and we're going to start with Rebecca. How would you ensure reliable and affordable water access for the residents?
This is very, very popular question right now. So I'm glad that this was asked, but the answer is fivefold, and there's so many directions that we need to attack this equation at the same time. The first one Ed mentioned before, and he's very familiar in this, and I really respect his knowledge and history of this, is that 1983 agreement and how we actually purchase and buy water. It's outdated, and we need to be able to reduce our costs. So that's number one on the list. The other things that need to happen is we need to consider our land use and development plans to make sure that new developments coming in are, responsible partners, and that we're making sure that we memorialize in code the values that we need to make sure that we're taking care of the entire community.
15.
Those are things that we can accomplish. I have a lot of history with development plans and planning, so I think that I can definitely usher that along. And then, among other things, I have other ideas, but we really need to teach people how to intentionally use water because.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rebecca.
Sure.
Okay, now we'll go to John. Did you want me to repeat the question, John?
I think I got it. Thank you, Leo.
You bet.
So from my perspective, I think that Ed and Rebecca both hit on a couple of key things. The board has been really for the entirety of the time. I think that Trustee Daly and I have been on the board almost working towards renegotiating that 1983 agreement. It's been in place for where are we at 23 years now. Those things take time. So obviously that's a huge key that needs to be, yes, longer than that. Sorry, 43 years. Missing 20 years there. The other thing that needs to be looked at is we always look at the revenue side, and we also need to look at the expenditure side and say, okay, when we're looking at bringing on new homes and businesses into town, that was one of the challenges we had when we did the big rate changes in 2020 and 2021. Those only impacted the residents. The businesses were not impacted on that. And so you actually end up with the situation where while the water
15.
rates went higher on the residents, that wasn't split across the board. And so one of the big things that we need to make sure that we're doing is we are charging people who are actually using the water for the water that's being used, not spreading that out to other people who aren't using that level of water.
Thank you. Next would be Mario.
Hi, could you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. How would you ensure reliable and affordable water access for the residents?
Thank you. I know a couple years ago, the town really started a movement on water conservation. I think if we could really dial in our businesses and our residents and stop minimize as much as we can of water waste that is also raising up our rates for the amount that we actually get from the North Pooter. Everybody said it, and the answer is on the table. We need to renegotiate our contract with the North Pooter, but I also believe we need to look for a second source of water for a town of our size and only getting bigger. It's not wise to have only one source of water. God forbid something should happen there, we would be out of a source, and we would be in a really bad situation at that time. So I do believe second water
15.
source, and let's start working. Let's work better on water conservation, starting with our businesses and then following along with our residents.
Okay, good. Let's end this one with Ed.
Thank you. I hope I can get all this said in 60 seconds.
It's hard. It's hard.
I was the one that started the water efficiency plan for Wellington based on our consumption and our need to conserve water. I also, as the town administrator, investigated numerous sources for new water for the town, following a study by Wright Water Engineers. So there's 4 things that I see that we need to do. First of all, I mentioned before, renegotiate the contract with North Pooter, take out those variables that are driving people's cost up. We also need to adjust our impact fees to more accurately capture the cost of water and water infrastructure. We need to source new water for the town so that we can control our own destiny. And also water dedication by developers needs to accurately reflect the cost
15.
of a new water source for the town of Wellington.
Okay, good. Now we're going to go to question number 6, and we're going to start with John. Please explain whether or not you think the water supply is adequate and sustainable to support new housing in town.
So the short answer is depending on how big we go. So if you look at the comprehensive plan for the town of Wellington that was just passed a few years ago, they say that Wellington should be a town of 40,000 people in 2040. So that's less than 20 years from now. Our water sources are adequate in terms of the amount of water that we can access to get us to about where the capacity of our current plant, our new expansions are. which is about 20,000. But if we're truly going to become a town of 40,000 people, we don't currently have access to that, and we do need to look at whether that's working with North Poudre under a new arrangement. But really, I think we do need to have a second source of water if we truly are going to try and become a town of 40,000. The other thing that needs to be kept in mind is if we're going to grow to a town of 40,000 people, that means that we're looking at another probably $200+ million of infrastructure that will have to be done once we hit capacity on the new plants that we're building right now.
Well, Mario, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Please explain whether or not you think the water supply is adequate and sustainable to support new housing developments in town.
Yeah, well, I do believe it is. I mean, of the 246 acres that we get from the North Poudre, anything that we use above that is what we begin the tier structure that's raising our rates so much. So I really believe that when we, with the acquisition or the bringing in, we're no longer there's no more unincorporated Larimer County between Wellington and Fort Collins. So we are now a suburb of Wellington. I think Fort Collins would be more than happy to sell us water wholesale and get a pipeline in here. Thank you.
Lee, you're muted.
I know I was blowing my nose, so I had muted myself. Ed, you're next. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I think we have an adequate water supply for now. But as John Gator said, with our growth, it's going to become harder and harder for North Poudre to supply the water to meet our growing needs. So we need to have an alternative water source to get us past the 2040 or 2020 or the next 5 to 10 years. We need to be thinking 50, 100 years out if we want to talk about a sustainable water supply. We only have one water supply that we own, and that is the wells up there by the elementary school. The rest of the water we have to pay for from North Poudre. We explored going to Fort Collins and having them sell us water. Didn't work out. We explored going to Elko, Northern Water. We explored the Terry Bison Ranch to the north. We explored multiple options, and there's still options out there that need to be explored, but we have to source new water for our long-term growth.
Thank you. Rebecca?
Hi, yes. So this question's great, and I want to clear up just a little confusion because a lot of people have this concern. The concern right now, like our near disaster or current crisis that's going to be resolved by the expansion of the plants, has to do with the capacity at which we process water, not the actual amount of water that's available to us. So I do want to clear that up. So with that said, yes, we do have enough water for new developments, and that is a matter of fact. But the question is, how much does that water cost? Right? That's coming back to that other question that we had before. So with that said, sure, the water is available for, a significant amount of future in which we're growing, but we have to find alternative sources. We have to be buying water where we can find it, and then we have to figure out how to deliver it and store it. So these are all big questions. This is the next frontier of our water concerns. Now that we can process enough water, how are we going to get the next water? This is phase 2 water resolution needed. Thanks.
Okay, great. Now we're going to question number 7, and we're going to start with Mario. What do you consider the most urgent infrastructure priorities for the town?
I would say which it really doesn't, from my understanding, it's not an issue we can easily resolve, but it's our bridge coming off I-25. The other thing I would love to see is a pedestrian overpass from the east, connecting the east side to the west side. There's so many kids, adults, people just crossing that highway, very dangerous. Our roads, I think one of the biggest things that residents lean on their city for is to make sure that we have safe and safe roads, and that we keep our pedestrians safe as well. So sidewalks, roads, and an overpass.
Okay. Ed?
Thank you. I agree that we need a new overpass over I-25. That is not going to be an easy fix, not going to be a cheap fix. I think we missed an opportunity by not joining the I-25 coalition several years ago when they planned the 3-lane expansion of I-25 from Berthoud till Prospect Road. Our road maintenance budget comes out of the general fund. The general fund is tapped for funds because we're not generating the kind of revenues that needs to support the general fund. So road maintenance, you know, when I was the town administrator, we only had a $400,000 budget each year for road maintenance. Our roads are getting older, our subdivisions need to start be looking at those as well, but we need to generate revenues. And in order to generate those revenues is by encouraging commercial growth so we can get commercial property taxes and commercial sales taxes.
Okay, thank you. Next we have Rebecca.
I feel like I have to talk so fast. 60 seconds isn't very long. So it's okay. Water is a major infrastructure. We've talked about it a lot. Roads, major. We just talked about that a lot. So I'm going to talk about something different. Parks, recreation, open space, trails. Although these are things that maybe you don't think of are essential, these are the items that increase our quality of life and make people love where they live. Tagline from Main Streets quoted. And the reason why these are so important is they tie into the whole picture. When you love where you live, you spend your money here. And then when you spend your money here, you're building our roads, you're building our infrastructure rather than Timnath's, rather than Fort Collins. You know, all of these things tie in together. So if we're going to talk about important infrastructure, it is making sure that people love to live here. And that's going to improve all of the overall infrastructure.
Thank you. John.
So I would absolutely agree. The bridge over the freeway is a major concern. The roads in our town, we've had residents come to us, and even when I've been out talking to people, that's been a concern, is the potholes, the areas where the road's starting to come up and do this in the middle of the road, especially around the manholes. And there are areas that just, there does need to be improvements on that. One of the other issues I've been working with several residents of Wellington and even the area around us has been looking at how do we incorporate public transportation? How do we get connected into Fort Collins or the rest of Larimer County? And that's something that we've been pursuing, and I think that's something that needs to be looked at as well. One of the concerns that's been brought up is there's a lot of services that aren't provided in Wellington, and there's been an ask of how do we get people that may not have access to a private vehicle or private vehicle at all times get access back into that. But I think the biggest thing that really drives the infrastructure, and we have to be careful about where we're spending our money and where our expense is going, because right now our general fund is providing grants to our water and sewer enterprises to help stabilize those.
Thank you. Now we're going to move to question number 8. Should the town explore bringing public transportation to Wellington, and how could that be accomplished? We'll start with Ed.
Yes, I think we should be talking to Fort Collins about bringing transportation options to Wellington. We have a senior center at the Leaper Center, and it's very active. There is a van there that can shuttle our seniors back and forth for medical appointments, but it's really limited on what days it can operate and how often it can run and the services it can provide. An intergovernmental agreement with Fort Collins should be an easy negotiation. It would come with a cost to the town as far as helping to pay for that, the funding for that additional service to our residents. But quite frankly, I think it's needed. We have a large portion of our population that is older adults and then people who can't drive. So this option would help tremendously.
Okay, Rebecca.
Absolutely. Public transportation is necessary for Wellington. All the resources of the county, none of them are located in Wellington. And we don't have clear access or public transportation access to any of them, including the new behavioral health campus, amazing campus that's on the south side of Fort Collins. So yes, is the answer to that question. But we do not need to reinvent the wheel here. We need to plug into other plans that we're one stop on the way, something between Cheyenne and Fort Collins, other discussions that are already in play. If we're trying to recreate this, we might as well buy a car for everybody who needs to use the public transportation, because it is just too expensive. We can't do it on our own. We need to be better partners and work with everybody that has already been working on these projects. Meanwhile, we also need to be focusing on bringing those services that people have to transport to Wellington, so that transportation challenge isn't an issue too. We need to hit these on both sides.
Thank you. John?
All right, perfect. So this is a great question, and I mentioned earlier that it's not always about what I want, but about really representing the residents. This is something that was actually brought to me multiple years ago by a group of residents that said this is a really big need. And with working alongside them, partnering with the city of Fort Collins, partnering with our senior center, we actually ran a transportation pilot where we used the old bus that the senior center had, and we were actually transporting people to Fort Collins and back up to Wellington. And we're able to actually gather some data through that, and has kind of brought this to something that the board's been looking at. There are a couple of things we need to look at. We talked to Fort Collins, the cost of potentially adding in another vehicle to come up to Wellington, they said was a little over $200,000. Which is a big lift for our general fund right now. CDOT in Wyoming are in the process of having conversations right now about a route that runs from Cheyenne into Colorado. And we need to be working on being a part of that so that there's a stop coming into Wellington. So I think that there's a lot of different options. One of the other things that we have to look at is we're currently not part of the North Front Range Planning Organization, which would help have access to more funds.
Mario, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Should the town explore bringing public transportation to Wellington, and how might that be accomplished?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think it's definitely a need, and I know there's been a lot of work put into that. I know there are some options like the Colt and CSU, and some of the things that have been in the works that I'm very excited and interested to learn more about. Some of those things the average resident wouldn't know because we're not in the everyday dealings with our local city government. It is a need. We definitely have to explore those options. We have some of the brightest people on the board and in our town administration. I think when we all collaborate, put our heads together, work as a team, we're going to be able to overcome all of these obstacles that the citizens are concerned about. It's really about collaboration and trusting each other, and getting the job done, providing answers.
Fine.
Thank you. We're going to question number 9 now. And then we'll start with Rebecca. What would you recommend be done to enhance and maintain the quality of our natural environment in Wellington?
This is a great question as well, because that's brought up in the comprehensive plan a lot, that people really admire and value, the roots of Wellington. So the biggest thing that's going to impact this is making sure that we are participating fully in the growth management plan in agreement with Larimer County. We need to be able to say, this is where Wellington ends. This is what potentially could happen in the future. And then we want to make sure that the county is acknowledging that and respects that, and that they are aligned with it. That way, if anybody's growing from both directions, we know where and when to stop. So I think that is a huge component of it. So I want to make sure that we apply enough effort and resources to make sure that our values from the comprehensive plan apply to how we interact with the GMA growth management plan with Larimer County.
Okay. John, would you like me to repeat the question?
I think I got it. Thank you.
Okay.
So I would say one of the biggest things with that is we need to really be asking ourselves, this comes back to the question of what is Wellington trying to become? I mentioned at the beginning, one of the biggest reasons I loved Wellington to move back here was all the farmland, all of the open space that I had here. You don't have that in the middle of Fort Collins. I remember when you could drive down Timberline and there was corn on either side, and that's gone. I think one of the things we need to look at is, are we making sure that the farmers and the land around us is feeling like they're part of the community. They're part of, we want them here. We're not just, oh, we need to put buildings there. We need to put buildings there. It's like, hey, we want to have this. We want to keep that agricultural root that we have. I think that's one of the biggest things. But then again, that comes back to that question of, okay, well, if we're trying to go to 40,000 populations, that's 4 times the current population of Wellington in the next 20 years. Well, that's a lot of farms that have to become houses. So I think it comes back to, you have to ask that question of what do we really want to become? And I think we should try to keep a lot of that agricultural roots in that small town.
Okay. Mario, would you like me to repeat the question?
I think I got it. Thank you, though.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you, Trustee Gator, for bringing that up, because that really is a big thing on my heart, is the farmers and the ranchers. You know, growing up in small town, a farming town, being on ranches and stuff and things of that nature is where my passion is. We are the North Gate. Historically, Wellington was known as the gateway to the Rockies. So I think preserving our small town image with expecting growth is something that we can do as residents. It really boils down to each one of us as individuals and just being friendly, loving your neighbor, and doing what's right for your family and your community. I am really excited for growth, but at the same time, I love our farms and our ranches. So I would like to see the farmers and ranchers be taken care of, and that they be thought of with any move that we do in the way of growth in Wellington.
Thank you, Mario. Ed, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
What would you recommend be done to enhance and maintain the quality of the natural environment in Wellington?
Thank you for that, repeating that question.
Yes.
You know, we've talked about growth. We've talked about our residential growth and the projections in the future. We talked about the need for commercial growth to sustain that. I like to sum that up by calling it smart growth. We need to be smart about how we grow, where we grow, and that we can support that growth as well. Our growth needs to emphasize open space and maintaining those open spaces. Like Fort Collins employed conservation easements to help preserve farmland, to keep that open space there and available for everyone to view, because it enriches the environment and enriches the views of the mountains that we have from Wellington here. We also have a creek that runs through town called the Box Elder Creek. The town looked at a trail system to connect the north and south end of town along Box Elder Creek, but that's never been accomplished. We need to keep working on that plan and get that into place.
Thank you. Now we go to question number 10. It's a whole lot of questions here. We're going to start with John. What do you feel is the biggest environmental issue facing the town, and how might that be addressed?
What do I feel is the biggest environmental issue is facing the town? Well, I would say a big one that has been brought up, and normally this went to the Planning Commission and then did come back to the Board of Trustees, but had to do with a proposed asphalt plant. There were a lot of concerns about the impacts of that. And I think that's one of the things as we talk about growing with not residential, but with commercial and especially with industrial growth, is we need to ask the question is, when we look at our town code, because that's really what governs what can and can't come in when you look at zoning, is what do we want with that? Do we want to have a lot of industrial with the smokestacks and things like that you see in some areas, or do we want to keep more farming and agricultural type industry? And we really need to look at what are we bringing in and what does that look like within our code and our zoning.
Thank you. Next, let's see. We go to Ed. Would you like me to repeat the question, Ed?
I thought
Mario was next, I think.
Oh, Mario, I'm sorry. Thank you for catching that. Mario.
Oh, no worries. Yes, please repeat the question.
Okay. What do you feel is the biggest environmental issue facing the town, and how should it be addressed?
That's a good one. What I believe it is something that we don't have very much control over, and that's our weather, with the crops sometimes being destroyed by hail and things of that nature. So I think we just need to of course keep businesses that may pollute our air out of Wellington. with our responsible growth. I mean, we have the more cars we have, the more emissions we have. Maybe look into some electric local public transportation within Wellington as we grow. That's a very good question, and that's something that we're gonna work on together as a board and address the issues as we see them as they come to our table.
Thank you. Ed, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I got that. Thank you very much. I agree that with Mr. Gator, or excuse me, Trustee Gator, about the asphalt plant at the north end of town and the studies for that. If you look at our zoning, that heavy industry is sitting too close to residential, and you need buffers around this. This should have been corrected in the comprehensive plan update. It wasn't. What I would do to address that is we haven't had a chance to talk about this, but I believe Wellington needs to become a home rule community. A home rule community gives you greater authorities and greater powers for zoning, more so than what state statutes allow, so that you can be more selective, so that you can identify which industries within heavy industry should be located within town and where should they be located.
Mhm. Okay, Rebecca, would you like me to repeat it?
No, I got it. Thank you. I serve on behalf of Wellington for the Policy Council for Solid Waste with the county, Fort Collins, Loveland, Estes Park. Each of those communities have very driven environmental direction and values that they bring to that committee, because those are kind of driven from their residents in their community. From our perspective, we haven't seen a significant push for those directions. I do want to acknowledge that. And I think it's very important. That hasn't been the top priority so far, at least when it comes to solid waste. So what I am going to mention, though, is something I do know about and that residents have brought concern about, and that is, as a liaison to the Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Pros Board, they have acknowledged that becoming a tree city, having canopy coverage, those kind of things, and being able to use water intentionally and effectively, those are things that can impact every single family's life and pocketbook. So I would say that those are the items that we could help ensure.
Thank you. Let's go on to question number 11, and we'll start with Mario. How would you assure that the residents receive accurate and transparent information regarding financial operations of the town?
That is a good question. A lot of good questions tonight. Transparency and just communicating with our residents is I believe all they're asking for. We already do this. We already get updates from the town staff on things that are going on. I really would like to take the opportunity to just reach out to the residents and say, it's something as simple as an email to one of the trustees if you have questions, and then you could get answers, and then you could share that with your friends or the people who are most affected by it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Ed, how would you assure the residents receive accurate and transparent information regarding financial operations of the town?
Thank you. When I first came on board as the town administrator in 2017, the town's budget was nothing more than a spreadsheet. And under my leadership, we started putting together more comprehensive information, more studies, more trend analysis on what our budget looks like and what our finances and our revenues and our expenses are, how they're trending within the community. There are resources out there. One resource is the Government Finance Officers Association, the GFOA. This is an organization that writes the standards for government financial transparency. GFOA has a checklist that we can follow to increase our budget, to increase our consolidated annual financial reports, to help transparency. And quite frankly, I'm real proud of what Wellington has been doing since I left. I see more transparency, but I think we can do more. And quite frankly, I'd like to see Wellington receive the Outstanding Budget Award from the GFOA.
That sounds great. Okay, and the next one is Rebecca on that question.
Can you repeat the question for me, please?
Sure. How would you assure that residents receive accurate and transparent information regarding financial operations of the town?
Okay, absolutely. So important. The basic details of transparency, and I think where we can make sure that we are giving assurance going forward for transparency is I think we need to adopt a formal transparency policy that indicates key performance metrics, guidelines and requirements, reporting requirements, how they're accessible, and just define those so everybody knows exactly where and what they can find what they need. But that's the basic level. That's a policy decision. I think that's great. Something that I insisted on in the past, and I really am happy we did, is informing the public or educating them on how municipal finance works. And one of those things that we did was a study with Rectalis regarding our water rates. And they are professionals in the field, so they have all the background knowledge. And actually, we're the first time we're able to project correctly future rates to or future everything to understand how to charge better. That's what we need to apply to everything.
Okay, good. John.
All right, thank you. So this is something that's been near and dear to my heart since I've been on the board, is really making sure that we are doing a good job in providing transparency. And as Ed said, that the town has made a lot of progress on that in terms of where the budget was. Because I remember when I was sat through my first budget as a resident, just watching, their budget was presented. There weren't questions asked by the elected officials. There wasn't detail asked to go into. It was kind of just presented and then it moved forward. I think one of the things that we've gone through is we actually have a very comprehensive process. We actually present the budget to the members of the community. We capture community feedback through our budget bonanza. That was one of the things that I pushed for, is how do we engage the residents? Our staff came up with a budget bonanza. It was an amazing idea. I asked for us to go through our budget line by line, and that's something that we did. Another thing that I pushed for is how do we engage residents? We created a finance committee that actually takes a look at the financials. But the other piece that really has to come in and that has been missing is that we as the elected officials need to take responsibility when reports are inaccurate and make sure that we get them straight.
Thank you. Okay. We're going to move on now to question number 12, which is related in a way for this dialogue. What are your biggest budget priorities for the next 2 years? And we're going to start with Ed.
Excuse me, I'm just taking some notes here.
Sure.
You want to know what say that question one more time, please?
What are your biggest budget priorities for the next 2 years?
You're muted.
Sorry. I've made no secret of the fact that we need more commercial growth to help increase our revenues, to help increase, the goods and services available to our community, provide jobs to the community as well. One of the priorities that I would want to put on the budget for the next years is whatever it takes for the town to become more business friendly, whether that's to hire a full-time economic developer to help promote Wellington and recruit businesses to the town. Rebecca talked about recreation. Our residents have been asking for a recreation center for years and nothing's been done. I think it's time that we budget money for a feasibility study for a recreation center. And that doesn't mean that we're going to go out and build one the day after, but it will tell us how much it's going to cost so we can start making careful plans to make sure that happens.
Thank you. Rebecca, budget priorities for the next 2 years.
Ed knows that rec centers are near and dear to my heart, but that is absolutely true. It has to be in the budget before we can pursue grants. Those are the kind of items that the community has spoken for years and years and years. Every single community survey, everything says we want a rec center, we want a rec center. Yet we balk at the price. But until we actually understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how much it's going to cost, we won't be able to seek the money that's available elsewhere. So that has to be budgeted. The other two things that we need to do to promote economic development is start creating a fund for business incentives and support. We have nothing right now. So if someone were to come and say, we're about to pull the trigger, we just really need you to make a slight concession on this, we don't have those funds saved right now. We need to be able to do that. The other thing I did last week is I went to incident command training, and I found out how underprepared potentially Wellington is from the funding standpoint. We have no emergency funds for a disaster related thing. That has to change.
Okay, thank you. John?
All right, thank you. So I'd say that my two biggest budget priorities for the next 2 years are first and foremost, no more deficit spending. So the last several years, and I want to say that we're up to 5 years now, we have actually expended more in our funds from the budgetary standpoint than we've had revenue coming in. Now our staff has done a good job at estimating low on revenue, and they've tried to keep the expenses down. But each of the budgets, as you look back over the years, we've actually budgeted to expend more money than we have coming in. So that's number one for me. We should not be budgeting more, especially as we look at, again, with our water enterprise and our sewer enterprise showing that they will go negative in the next 2 years. We should absolutely not be overspending. So we need to get the spending under control. Number two is really making sure that we're putting money aside for roads and transportation. So that could be multiple things. We've had a lot of concerns about the shape of our roads, sidewalks, making sure that we've got money set aside for those. And then also looking at options for public transportation. What does that look like? Can we partner with other entities, and what would the cost associated with that?
Okay, thank you. Mario?
That was Mario.
Oh, I'm sorry. I greeted him. We got through everybody on that one then. I'm sorry, I didn't check it off. Number 13, what types of recreational opportunities would you recommend the town invest in?
I didn't get an opportunity to answer that last question.
I didn't
apologize.
think you did either, Mario. Could you?
Sorry, I thought it was Mario. My
Oh,
bad.
Okay, Mario.
No
we
worries. No
apologize.
worries.
We apologize. So the question
No
is, what are your
worries.
biggest budget priorities for the next 2 years?
Yeah, and as I started to say, in reference to Trustee Gator, what a hard act to follow, because you pretty much stole exactly what I was thinking. My biggest thing is the deficit spending. That has got to stop, and I believe it's going to stop. Again, as our board comes together, and as we start handling things as a whole body, then I think a lot of that is going to be fixed in itself. My biggest things are roads, and making sure that our sheriff's department has adequate funding to bring on the amount of officers needed. Something that Trustee Daly just referenced is pretty. It's something that I was kind of aware of, but now that she made me well aware of it, it's definitely something that's on my mind. I would want to ensure that the sheriff's department is well funded and they have what they need in order to properly protect our residents.
Thank you. On to question number 13. What types of recreational opportunities would you recommend that the town invest in? And we're going to start with Rebecca.
Okay, great. That's what I thought. So I'm really excited to talk about this because I just did an engagement session with 86 residents who were giving me feedback on what they want to see from a recreation standpoint. So we talked about facilities, activities, the age in which it would serve, and it is overwhelming, the need and want to have services and to be with neighbors and be active with neighbors and have a gathering place where you belong in Wellington. And generally, people say that's a rec center. It could look a lot of different ways, and we're finding that out. It could look like a senior center and a rec center. It could look like a pickleball pavilion. There's a lot of different ways, but we really have to engage residents to see how they want the community to serve them and what will help them love where they live the most. And people think I just want to lounge by a pool. I do want to do that. But really what I want to do is bring the community together. And that's where the entire strength and fabric of the community is going to expand.
Okay.
Thanks.
John.
All right. So I think there are a couple of pieces on this. I think when we look at larger buildings, and I'm actually involved in work right now and bidding another town that's building a very small recreational center, and that's $7.5 million. So it's a very expensive proposition depending on what you're looking to do. What I would love to see is a private entity come in and actually put together something, and for us as a town to be able to help them make that happen, and let them run that and provide that service to the community. Where I think we as the town should invest is looking at our parks. We have this amazing park downtown. that's right by our main street. I would love to see us investing in helping to make that an area that people want to come, that people want to spend time, that we can have. We do have a lot of events that go there, but let's get more events there and draw more people into the downtown. And so that's a way that we can focus on that. That's not going to go over and above what our budget can support. Because again, we're sitting here at a point we don't have the budget to support a huge facility. I'd love to encourage other private parties to come in and build that and then serve the community, and then have us focus on really building out our parks.
Thank you, John. Mario?
Thank you. In the way of recreation, I would like to see bowling alleys, skating rings, things of that nature that really bring the community together, and things to look forward to in our town. I am on board with this is a very exciting year. I'm on board with a recreation center coming in here, but I truly believe it's going to be done by private citizens, a group of local businessmen, investors who have been planning this for quite some time now. It would not do us any justice for the town to have something else that they have to run when we're in this building phase. I think parks and our parks is where our money could make the biggest impact for residents and visitors of Wellington.
Okay. And now we have Ed.
Thank you for that. You know, for 7 years, I've been driving down Cleveland Avenue and I look at that skateboard park and I see all the kids out there having a good time. The town doesn't even maintain that. It throws a little money that way, but it's volunteers who make that work. I think it's time that we actually invest in our youth. You know, we've got some great parks, Centennial Park downtown. We've got the community park up north. What I would like to see at the community park up north is a full-size skateboard park for our youth to enjoy. And I'd like to see interconnected trails so that these young kids can travel from wherever town on their skateboards, north and south, east and west, to the community park to enjoy that. Yes, I'd like to see a recreation center if it's affordable, but I think we need to explore every avenue that we can to determine the best way to achieve a recreation center.
Okay, thank you. Going on to the next question, and we're going to start with John. Do you see a need for affordable housing in Wellington? And explain your position.
Perfect. So I think that, yes, there's absolutely a need for affordable housing. And there's a lot of ways that you can look at that, right? You can look at that as an option if the solution is the government comes in and puts its thumb on the scale. Or we can try to say, okay, how do we encourage builders to build homes that are affordable? Because that's, I think, when I look at this, the biggest problem is when you look back, 10, 15 years ago, a family that's just looking to start a home could buy a small home, small lot, small footprint of the house for $100 and something thousand or a couple $100,000. Well, if you look at all the homes that are being built now, a lot of those are being built, on huge lots with several thousand square feet, that those aren't homes that someone starting out can afford. And I know Berthoud had this great setup where they were building smaller homes. They were still a great place for people to start, but it was a small footprint. And I think that's the way we want to look at that, is builders who want to build those type of homes that will be a good beginner house for someone, rather than us as the government having to step in and then put our hand on the scale.
Okay, Mario. Do you see a need for affordable housing in Wellington?
Most definitely. And, I think this is a problem that is not, that doesn't only affect Wellington. This is a statewide issue, a countrywide issue. I believe government entities that come in and help with that could be one option. I believe Trustee Gator said it best. If the only way to really bring in affordable housing, if that's what we're talking about, is to have the builders build starter homes that are in younger people's price range. There's definitely a need for affordable housing in Wellington, Colorado.
Okay. Ed.
Yes, we do need affordable housing in Wellington. From my experience, though, when I was in Illinois, small community, 3,500 people, $1.9 million combined budget. I brought in a 40 unit affordable housing, Section 42 housing, to meet the needs of affordable housing needs in Fulton, Illinois. When I was in Fraser, we obtained a grant and purchased land to build 113 affordable and attainable housing units for the workforce that worked up in this resort community. We also formed a regional housing authority and passed a 2 mil property tax levy to fund affordable housing initiatives. There are a lot of ways to get affordable housing, and none of that really involves the town dropping a lot of money into this. It's about knowing what questions to ask and how to make things happen.
Okay. Good. And Rebecca?
Absolutely. Affordable housing, Colorado Municipal League for last year declared that that was going to be the top issue across the entire state of Colorado, not to mention further than that, we know this. So I do have to give a plug real quick though, because I really do wish that Larimer was here, and she is a master of affordable housing and how to do that creatively. And she has so much experience with that through Habitat for Humanity. So I do want to acknowledge that right now, because she, you know, when you're on a team, on a board, you don't all have to have the same skills. Actually, I think it would be better if you don't. So that way, you know, I can chase this passion while the other person chases their passion, and it's all coming around to help the town of Wellington. So that's a good match. But with that said, for affordable housing, there's some exceptions that we've made for some developments that have just gone in that would result in more affordable housing. I think we need to memorialize that. If those are the values that we're going for, we need to update our code to support that in the future, not making an exception. So overall, we need to look at those creative options.
Okay, thank you very much. Looking at the time here, I'm going to combine a couple of questions and omit one, and we'll try to stay on target here. We're going to start with Mario on this question. Please explain your opinion on whether or not the town should discontinue mail ballots, and also should Wellington move to fall elections? Mario?
Okay, yeah, could you repeat that question one more time?
Yes, yes. What's your opinion on whether or not the town should discontinue mail ballots? And should Wellington explore moving town elections to the fall, as some other Larimer county towns have done?
Yeah, so, you know, historically growing up voting, one of the things that I like to do was actually get out and go to the voting polls and to cast my vote there and to talk to people there and to really embrace the community on that day. You know, I know that the town went over budgeting and that it was more affordable for them to do the mail-in ballot. You know, I think as long as every resident is able to cast their vote and the will of the people is heard, it doesn't matter if we vote in person or by mail. I do think we're losing a big part of our history and understanding how our local governments and even national government was originally founded by people getting out and voting. Moving it to the fall, sure, let's do it. If that's what the people want, if there's some logistic reason why it would be more beneficial, maybe more time to campaign. You know, if that's something the town brings to the board, and as a board we agree to that, then that's what it'll be.
Okay, Ed.
I always encourage citizens' right to vote. I am a student of history, of constitutional law. I have read American history and the documents of our founding fathers, and I know how important that civic responsibility of voting is. I've also have seen firsthand how restricting citizens' right to vote can be detrimental to the community and detrimental to the nation. So I encourage any means to allow residents to vote. And a lot of our families, you know, they're working families, they can't take time off to come in and vote. Mail-in ballots are a great way to do that. As far as moving to November, I think that's a great idea. We can partner with the county. The county will mail out the ballots. If you're worried about the cost, that would help keep the cost down for the town of Wellington. And I am proud to say that it was under my leadership as the town administrator that Wellington offered its first mail-in ballots.
Cool. Okay, Rebecca.
I feel very strongly about this. It is proven that more people participate and vote with mail-in ballots than in-person alone voting. So it would be a decision if we were to remove mail-in ballots that we would intentionally be having less people participate in the voting process. And to me, that is wrong. So I would never support taking away mail-in ballots. What I do think is a great solution, though, is coordinating with the county and state and nation in November. I think that encourages even more voting because it is kind of confusing when you're receiving a municipal ballot versus primaries versus everything else that's going on. If we would be part of that whole process, people would know when to vote and how to do it, and it would be very straightforward. More people would participate. Now, that's my opinion, and that's what I would think that a lot of people would say, but I would definitely, of course, need to get feedback and understanding from residents if they were in support of that. But to me, it looks like moving to November would be a great choice. And then we offer all the options.
Okay, John.
Thank you. I'm going to answer the second part first because that's quick, and then I want to get to the first part. I would not support moving the moving the election of any kind to the November ballot. And the reason being is people talk all the time about municipal elections shouldn't be partisan. If you move a municipal election to the same ballot as a partisan, you are by default going to wind up with a more partisan election. You're also going to lose a lot of the local issues because people are so busy trying to deal with the national or regional issues that are going on at the same time. To the first part about mail-in ballots, there's a couple of pieces with that. Is that they cost a lot more to do a mail-in election versus a polling place election. As was mentioned, our first mail-in election was in 2020, and so there was never something that the voters came and said, "Hey, should we do this?" What I'd love to see is the voters actually vote and say, "Yes, we do want to do this. We understand it costs us more money. We want to have access to that." There are issues with mail-in ballots. What I'd love to see is a system where we actually mail information to every single voter, including the forms that they need, that if they would like to receive a mail-in ballot, that anyone that wants one can request one and receive a mail-in ballot. And if other people don't want one, we aren't sending out ballots to just everybody. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. This is going to be your closing question. It came in from people in the community. And we're going to start on this one with Ed. If elected, would you ever support a revisit or reapplication by Connell Industrial Company or any other company to build an asphalt plant in Wellington? This issue came up in one of your responses, I think.
Can you repeat the question for me, please?
Yeah. Would you ever support a revisit or reapplication by Connell Industrial Company or another company to build an asphalt plant within the town of Wellington?
Thank you for that
An
question.
asphalt plant, yeah.
Thank you for that question. I know that's a touchy subject. You have two issues at hand. One of them, we have a zoning document that allows that industry exactly where they were applying for. So you've got one document from the town saying, yes, you can do it. And then you've got maybe the Board of Trustees that maybe want to say, no, we don't want to. And that's a touchy subject, and it's a very fine line to balance on. Legally, if you want to keep your costs down, yes, you'd have to approve it because it's in our zoning. It's gone through a comprehensive plan. It's been on our zoning records for years. So yes, you'd have to support that. What I think is more important, though, is to revisit our zoning out there, and maybe, and I mentioned before, going to home rule, because you can have more selective zoning in there, and you can take out those type of industries that have those toxic fumes and those toxic smells and the dust and the noise and the pollution, and move them to other regions, maybe even outside of town.
Okay, the next one is Rebecca.
Hi, I have to decline on some of this question and responding because we are actively in litigation at this point, so I cannot speak anything specific to Connell. But what I will mention is regarding zoning that Ed just mentioned a bit just there. And what I think is really important is if we are going to be enforcing rules associated with our zoning permissible uses in our zoning map, then we need to make sure that those are reflective of the values of Wellington. So rather than doing case-by-case basis or any of these kind of scenarios, we just need to make sure that everything is set in a way that it would be accommodating to businesses that are using the correct use in the right place. And a lot of these things can be avoided. So I'm a big fan of property owners and allowing them to use their property for the uses that they've indicated and that they accept it to be. But unfortunately, I can't speak to Connell in particular. Thank you.
John?
Perfect, thank you. Likewise, I won't be speaking specifically to Connell. That is an ongoing litigation for the town. I would like to say, though, that, our job, again, it doesn't come down to my opinion. It comes down to what does our town code actually state. And one of the things that has come up is our town code does specifically have a provision for anything that curates or produces hazardous or toxic chemicals or chemicals, there's some wording there, has to be 2,600 feet from any residential. And I think that there's some inconsistency within our town code because that allows asphalt is currently, it's an allowed use within the industrial. And I think one of the things that people don't realize is that if something is an allowed use and it meets all of the setbacks, that never comes to the Board of Trustees as elected officials. That goes to the Planning Commission. If there's a change in setbacks, that goes to the Board of Adjustments, but those don't come to the Board of Trustees. So I think that we need to look at our town code and say, hey, if we don't feel like an asphalt plant or heavy chemical producers are appropriate uses within the town of Wellington, then that actually needs to be an adjustment that's made to our town code. And I'd love to have that conversation, and I would support that conversation.
Thank you. Mario?
Yeah, thank you. For me, the short answer is no. And this is a so I'm also an asphalt contractor and seal coating. I owned a couple companies where I do asphalt and seal coating for pavement. It would be great to have that there for business, but the fact of the matter is the residents don't want it here. I've been around the smells. I've had it on my skin. I've bought it and installed it all across the state and even in other states. It would be great if it could be somewhere else other than where the residents don't want it. But honestly, I feel like it would be more beneficial for that company to be in Weld County over there where the sand actually comes from. It wouldn't make no sense. It wouldn't make much sense to truck in all the sand from Weld County all the way through here. So there's a lot of issues with it. I'm going to say no.
Thank you. Okay. Believe it or not, we've come to the point where you get to do your closing remarks. And I'm going to go in reverse order from what we did with the opening remarks. So I'll start with Mario. You have 60 seconds to make your closing remarks.
Thank you. My fellow residents, as we stand at the crossroads for our beloved town of Wellington, it is clear that change is not just necessary, but imperative. Our current administration's reckless deficit spending threatens the very core of our local economy. We cannot allow our town to spiral into bankruptcy under the weight and poor leadership and lack of accountability. It is time for us to come together, to raise our voices and make a stand for our community. We must reject the dysfunction and complacency of our current board and demand true leadership that puts the needs of the people first. As your elected official, I pledge to be a voice to the voiceless, to advocate for our values of freedom, unity, and strength. We must resist any attempts to strip away our rights as citizens, to diminish our power and control over our own town. We must remain vigilant against the forces of division and hatred and instead embrace love, peace, and joy as our guiding principles of our governance. This election is not about choosing a candidate. It's about upholding the very essence of democracy, about reclaiming our local government for the benefit of all of us. Let us banish the shadows of uncertainty, fear, and step boldly into the future where our voices are heard and our values are respected.
Fine.
Thank you. John?
All right, thank you very much for taking the time to put this on this evening. Really, I want to talk to you as the residents. This is one of the most important parts of the year. It's your opportunity to hold your elected officials responsible. I've been on the board for 4 years. You can look at my voting record. You can see what I've supported. You can see what I've opposed. I've really worked during my time on the board to really work towards representing you, the residents of it. And 90% of the time, that's been great. The 10% of the time, there's not been agreement on that. And I think it's important that you look at that and say, do you like the direction that you're going? Do you like that we're continuing to expend more while we're raising your water rates? Or do you want us to actually be responsible to you, the residents of the town? We are designed to be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. My goal is to be that for you. My goal is to hold us as a board and as the town staff accountable. We are your servants, public servants. We're not your masters. We work for you. Also, I want to continue working towards transparency. You need to understand, where is our money going? What is being spent? Where are we lacking? And then I
Right.
also feel we need to engage with you, the residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you so much for hosting this. It's so important for these opportunities for us to get in front of the community so they can see what we stand for and what we believe. My core values are based off trust and loyalty. My goal is to make sure that we have a town that my kids are going to be proud to live in, and are wonderful members of that community in the future, meaning that we're sustainable enough for that to be a great place for them to live, and also that we're improving it to meet all of our needs. So I really, really hope that, for one thing, if you don't know me, you do try to check me out, ask people who do, because trust is paramount for me, and relationships, and making sure that I understand the needs and want of the community, and leading with compassion and care. So that is what I will bring, and that's what I have represented myself, and that is my reputation, and I stand behind it wholeheartedly. And I do ask for your vote, because I think the next 4 years are crucial, and I think that I need to be here to make sure that we're protecting our future. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Rebecca. Ed. Get to
Well,
close.
the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum, and I'd like to thank the other candidates for showing up and voicing their concerns and their opinions. I know this is going to be a tough decision for Wellington residents. I hope that you choose me to be your next trustee. I am a visionary leader. I have always been a visionary leader. I have the experience, the knowledge of how to get things done at a municipal level. I'm a very collaborative leader. I have worked with other governments and nonprofits to achieve municipal objectives. And I've been building communities, quite frankly, for more than 40 years. And I would love to have the opportunity to serve you, all of you, the residents of Wellington, as your next trustee. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all the candidates. I've really enjoyed this evening. I honestly have really enjoyed getting to know all of you a little bit. And I want to thank the league and the listeners who joined us tonight. The voting services team is such a great group. They pull this together so well. Voting is such a privilege and responsibility, and we wish all the candidates well. Anybody else have a close? I think we're able to say goodnight. Thank you.
Thank you so
Good night,
much.
everybody. Thank you. Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.